Thank you everybody for making the time. For those who've come here live, look, it's going to be a really, hopefully a great session. We want to make it interactive, so fear not, it won't be too interactive. But we're going to have a Q&A at the end. We'll also do a bit of a quick poll in the middle. And for those who are watching this on a recording, apologies, you won't get the Q&A. That's the benefit of being here live. But look, this is one of our Work Better webinars. I'm Liam Scanlan. This is Rory Broadbridge. And look, we're really excited to have you here today. Our focus is going to be on installation and commissioning. We've called it First Time Right because it's theoretically possible and yet practically annoyingly elusive when you are trying to do this work at scale. And so what we want to do over the course of this session is tell you a little bit about, I think, some of the insights to the challenge of why First Time Right is so difficult, and then describe a little bit of the tools and some learnings around how to improve that for installation and commissioning projects, be they small or large. So by way of introduction, so I'm Liam Scanlan. I'm one of the co-founders of HINDSITE, but my background is BHP. And so I, in the course of my time there, got to take a number of sites from greenfield to brownfield, which meant ensuring that they got delivered and you know, we got the resource out as quick as we could to varying degrees of success, as well as global technology rollouts across multiple sites and multiple parts of the group, the remote operating centers, so really big, complex installation projects, which I got to do from the customer perspective of an installation and commissioning job, where we relied really heavily on our amazing service providers to do that work. And in my course of time there, a number of those challenges were what really helped inspire some of the work that I've done since, and that includes HINDSITE. So yes, great to meet you all today, and yeah, looking forward to your questions. Please, there's a chat there as well. Do include anything along the way. Between myself and Rory, we'll try and address them certainly at the end, but if we can natively as we go through, we'll do so. Speaking of which, I'll let Rory introduce herself.
Thanks so much, Liam, and thank you to everyone who's joining us today. As Liam mentioned, my name's Rory. I'm Head of Customer Success at HINDSITE. I love my job because I get to work with our fantastic customers every day to help them achieve their goals and outcomes. And as we're going to talk through today, installation and commissioning is one of those really tough parts of the product life cycle where it's so important to get it right, because your customer is expecting you to deliver on the promises that you made them. But it's so difficult for so many reasons. And so we think we've built a fantastic platform, which you'll get to see a little bit about today, that really sort of solves the challenges that we think exist and that our customers tell us exist from an installation and commissioning perspective. Unlike Liam, my background is not in mining at all. I've had a really steep learning curve over the last few years since, starting HINDSITE. But my experience is in installation and commissioning of a different kind. So implementing software systems and new processes for customers right around the world. I've done a lot of work in Europe and in the Middle East. So I have a lot of experience working with people and the challenges that come from, doing new projects and difficult projects with people in lots of different, environments, operating conditions, languages, cultural expectations. So bring a lot of experience from that direction, and obviously, of course, with our other customers as well. How can we sort of share the expertise around how to get installation and commissioning first time right?
Thanks, Rory. So when putting this together today, we really wanted to understand that we go to so many conferences and so many different industry groups in the nature of our work, and we all recognize that we want to do things better. We want to implement and adopt and build the latest and greatest into our respective industries, and the importance of actually then getting what's on the can for what it is you buy it requires people to install and commission them. And so we wanted to highlight that everything we're going to talk about today as part of our Work Better webinars is within the context of really the full value chain and the complexity of so many different stakeholders that have to come together to do not just this critical work, but ensure all of the assets that our businesses interact with are done and maintained and used, as well as made effectively and efficiently and safely as possible. So with installation and commissioning, it's such a complex part of the value chain because we recognize it has so many different stakeholders. There's the end customer themselves, but there's also those service providers, those distributors, those OEMs, subcontractors, all of whom come together to install and commission critical projects. And those projects can be really large and complex, or they could be simple. And it's a small team that's needing to do that work, but it just happens to be needing to be done multiple times, potentially in multiple locations, which is its own level of complexity. And so from our, not just our work here at HINDSITE, but the work of so many of our key partners across multiple sectors, including Deloitte and McKinsey and the Project Managers Association, what they found is that having that installation and commissioning work done correctly every time is intrinsically difficult. And not only that, when it's not done right, besides the obvious, the project is delayed and therefore those direct costs have gone up. They did a lot of work and analysis on a lot of the indirect costs when these things don't go well. So we want to start the conversation with just recognizing why it's important that these projects do go well for the variety of the stakeholders that we've mentioned. And what they found is that the average project across industries is typically experiencing 10 to 25% higher costs and delay due to a key variety of reasons, which we'll cover in a second. But that cost is significant, especially when you're that person that's having to pick up the bill. Or if you're the business here on the call and you're having to sell that project, in the back of your mind, it's not a good feeling knowing that it's likely to cost 10 to 25% more than what you've estimated, because at the end of the day, that doesn't make for a happy customer. And indeed, if we go into the analysis on those indirect costs, what we're finding is that it impacts not just the cost of that project, and the people that are on it, but it also has ongoing costs. So the asset themselves potentially isn't delivering the value that the customer has purchased. So we see that with increased downtime. In fact, we find the biggest impact on asset availability is on the criticality and directly correlated to the quality of its commissioning. We also find that there's reputational risk and damage when those projects go over length, because indeed this isn't a one and done project and everyone on it disappears into the night. Chances are that's an ongoing relationship with the customer that is taking possession of that equipment or asset that's been installed and commissioned, but it's also that reputation that goes towards the broader market. And so all those costs add up when these things don't go according to plan. Which sounds obvious in hindsight, got my one pun in, but the most important part is thinking about the relationship for the customer, for that end experience of perceived value. And the Project Managers Association and Gartner's hype cycle typically has it look like this journey, where those end customers finally get a project approved. And so the perceived value is high because everyone is very excited to finally have budget approval and everything's lined up, and they want to get going and get that outcome that was the reason for the purchase in the first place. But what we find is that there's a trough of typical disillusionment by not just the customer, but even those on the project, because of things going not according to plan. And those deployment challenges, some call it the trough of depression, but they stall that momentum. They require those extra resources and costs, and or eroding the margins for those service providers, depending on the contract nature. And it's a question of how fast or how quickly can that project get back on track. And we see that's where the bulk of the reputation and or indirect costs are incurred. And so this was done across analysis of thousands of different projects, and I'm sure everyone on the call, like myself and Rory, we've probably been in that trough of disillusionment at least at one point or another, and it's not a good feeling. But certainly when you come through it at the other end, it's because people have put in a heck of a lot of extra work and effort, and it's about how do we shorten, or hopefully, if everything's done first time right, remove that trough of disillusionment. So just go a little bit deeper, what's impacting that performance? So when you're in there and things aren't going correctly, we're seeing a broad pattern of failure. And we've, in concert with some of our partners, done a lot of polling and analysis work with our clients to try to understand those root causes. So I thought I might pause here and we might pull up a poll. And what I'd love to have those here on the call today is identify the top 3 ones that are most common to them, that they experience on installation and commissioning projects, because I think that would be just an interesting data point for the purposes of our Q&A. But what you're going to see here on the screen is those top 7 that have been identified by our clients, across multiple industry sectors, multiple types of commissioning projects. And probably the 4 insights I'd share just off the back of that work is those patterns of failure that they experience, is that lack of consistency on how that work is performed by the variety of individuals that need to do that work. They've also reporting that poor visibility is meaning that they can't plan and respond as quickly as they could. And that because of those delays, there's that downtime chaos where you're waiting on critical dependencies because you don't have full control of what's happening out in the field. And then finally, at the end of it all, there's critical documentation gaps. A quick learning from BHP around even just shutdowns was, we were having almost 30% of work orders be approved at the end of a shutdown, which is a really large, complex, typically, project with its own commissioning requirements. They don't have any information against them. They can't find the documents to close out the work orders, so they're just having to be closed willy-nilly. And the amount of effort that it causes future planners is immense. So I can see a couple of people responding there on the poll. So thank you for that. But looking at the 7 that we have from our clients, we found that the manual processes and paperwork was a real killer. In fact, it seemed to be the most top identified root cause for those patterns of failure. And so besides the process, the next most common one was then the people portion of trying to get good standard work and performance done on a commissioning installation project. And so there's just never enough experts. We know that across every sector. And if you've got them, you don't have enough of them. And even then, it's making sure that they're available to do the critical work at the time it needs to be done. So we're relying more and more on less experienced people to do that work, which seems to flow nicely into the third most typical root cause, is that those people, how they work together then to do that work and collaborate between teams, between different subcontractors, and that lack of visibility then for those who are trying to run and coordinate that project seems to compound those issues. And then the nature of where possibly our clients, so this might bias the results here, but the nature of where our work gets done. And you have those people working across multiple shifts, remote operations, it certainly makes getting consistency of work done much more difficult. And then finally, it's just the nature of the job. So there's tight timelines and demands that people are trying to do more quickly. And our customers are always challenging. They're always right, but they're challenging. and then doing that work in an increasingly complex environment, both physically and then also the nature of the work that needs to be done. Right, I'll end the poll there. Thank you for those that participated. Interestingly, it looks like if I share the results, looks like we had manual process and paperwork communication gaps be tied for number one. Then it was people as the close second, and then I think that says coming next behind that is tight timelines and demands, environmental and customer challenges. So really the nature of trying to get this work done as quickly as possible. Awesome. Thank you for that. So given that context, I guess the so what element of that we really drilled down upon, and what I found through my personal lived experience at BHP was it was the tooling that we give our people that's really exacerbating some of these challenges. I mean, if I can wave a magic wand and make everybody an expert, I'm sure that would solve a lot of challenges. But the age-old adage of if you give ask two experts how to do a thing, chances are they're doing it differently based on who showed them, which we see really commonly across our industry base. Therefore, it really comes down to the processes and how are we making sure that people have what they need when they're doing the work to know that the work's getting done correctly. And so what we found is the gap exists once that fantastic schedule is designed and resourced at the beginning of a job, then the ERP work orders and the work packs are created and given to the people in the field that we're relying upon getting the work done. And that's where we see the choose your own adventure really contributing to the inconsistency of how that work gets done. And if you've been one of those people out in the field needing to do that, and you are trying to, you're commissioning something off an Excel checklist, but then there's a manual, but then there's there's something in WhatsApp, and you're relying on paper thrown in there for good measure. And at the end of the day, there's a customer needing something signed off. We see that being a really inefficient way that a lot of these projects are getting delivered, irrespective of who's doing them and irrespective of the complexity of the job and the size of the job. We see that to be a really key contributor. So unsurprisingly, that's what we really set out to solve, was to recognize what if we could turn that chaos part in the middle into something that was a little bit more seamless, and what impact would that make on trying to make sure that things get done first time right. And I think what we were surprised about, and what Rory will show and talk to a little bit in a minute, is just how big a change that can make. And if you pause for a moment and think for yourselves, well, how much training do you remember? How much time do you spend reading manuals when you go out to do some of this work? The answer is probably very little. So again, if you could enable every person out there to have all the right information when they're there doing the work, but also collaborate in real time with the rest of the project and the performance of that to troubleshoot, to resolve things as they come up, and for the project team to respond in real time when those things do arise, just what impact that can have on that installation and commissioning requirement. And so what we found is some of our clients have, all of them are finding improvements in the delivery of those projects, but a couple of really cool and powerful callouts. Right out of the gate, they're finding that because you have that live updating and live response, we're seeing a reduction in that procure to pay time and project completion. So that 10 to 25% cost overrun is getting reduced. And a great anecdote we have from a global OEM of ours is that they actually managed to reduce that procure to pay from 6 months down to, that invoice can get issued as soon as people climb off the gear out on site, which is a really great experience, not just for them, but also for the client. That they're actually able to sign stuff off, reduce those warranty windows of exposure. The benefits kind of roll on from there. That improvement in quality and consistency is obviously critical. We had the Boeing and the CSIRO here in Australia did a project work together, and they found that the biggest impact on the way a task got done with consistency was really the distance in which that person had the information, from them doing the job. And so again, if we can put all of that in people's pockets, then it's right there with them, and we know that that's improving the consistency as well as the quality of how that work is performed. Which rolls straight into safety and compliance. And we've got a great customer, Grease Boss. They rely solely on third parties to do that installation and commissioning work in third-party regions. And as good as they have with those third parties, ensuring that they have the tooling to do the work correctly isn't just the physical tools, it's all the processes that and knowing that the work got done correctly. And we'll show off an example of what that can look like with Rory in a second. And then finally, it's getting more from their teams. So we've had feedback that we're seeing more than a 10% efficiency gain from technician time. They don't have to go back to the donga at night and write a report and capture information. It's all getting passed through live, and issues that arise get responded to live, which again improves their tactile time. And most importantly, at the end of the day, it's improving customer satisfaction. So our customers who are clients who are using us to solve for that, they're winning more work, and they're reducing their costs and warranty rework expenses at the same time. So before we just maybe show an example, just to highlight, look, we've, whilst Rory, myself, and our team have a great variety of experiences in installation commissioning, it's our clients who do this every day around the world, teams big and small, and it's they who've informed trying to solve for this because of the impact it has on their business. And so we've co-created what we're about to show with them. And that feedback and that mission is ongoing, which is why we create these webinar series, because we think we've got a fantastic tool, but it's getting better every day, and we do that based on the feedback from people who are out on the tools. So with that in mind, I might throw over to Rory to show an example.
Thank you so much, Liam. Now let me switch screens, and we'll make sure that we're getting that up and running correctly. Perfect. Liam, you can see my screen now?
Gotcha.
Wonderful. So everyone, we are in the HINDSITE platform, the web platform. We also have a dedicated device for our frontline and hands-on users on by both iOS and Android. The reason why I wanted to start in the web platform and not the end user experience is because I think that poll really accurately describes two of the really key pain points for businesses and organizations around installation and commissioning. The top two from that poll was manual processes and paperwork, and a lack of visibility and communication gaps with regards to how work is being done, where work is up to, where are the pain points, how can we improve? And so what we're actually looking at here is an example of quite a complex, actually, installation and commissioning project where we're potentially going to be installing two different types of products on a number of machines on a customer site. But it is a digital representation of our platform, of the project, that could be viewed by a customer service manager, a supervisor, a project management lead from anywhere. And so what we're having a look at here is, a theoretical project happening at Olympic Dam, although we have quite a number of customers working on Olympic Dam doing installation and commissioning projects as we speak. It was scheduled to start on the 1st of October and is going to run through the month. And if I actually click open our project, we start to see more details about this. And what you're seeing here is going to be updating in real time as long as there's an internet connection. And of course, our platform works completely offline for those customers and those sites where internet connectivity is not an option. But what I've got here is a work order for installing a collision avoidance system, and a work order for installing an operator alerter system. And of course, the product and the service can be completely unique to your business, and you're going to get the leverage and the benefit from everything that you're seeing in the platform today. As I mentioned, we're doing work at Olympic Dam. We know what products we're assigning. We've got planned start and finish dates. We've got project managers or QA officers involved in the actual coordination and delivery of this project. And let's actually keep diving down into that more detail, because we know that, you know, it's really at the surface, it can look quite calm and quite clean. And then as we sort of move into the actual operational execution of an installation and commissioning project, this is where, you know, some of the drama and the complications come into play. And with hindsight, we're really sort of keeping that nice and streamlined. So what we're looking at here is part of our collision avoidance system work order. We've got about 26 vehicles, and I can see that here by our assigned work instructions that we're going to be installing this collision avoidance system. Right now, we can see that we're about almost 7% of the way through because we're tracking through each of those work instructions. We know that one got finished yesterday by myself. I'm in all places all at once, but you can imagine this was your team members coming through and actually completing this work. We've actually got a flagged issue on this one, and we're going to talk about this in a minute, because sometimes things don't go to plan. And so as an organization, you need to be able to know what those are, perhaps without relying on your team to report them, but also then turn around actions and activities out of that to make sure that the project doesn't get behind. And I'll show you that in a minute. We also have a machine that was also installed yesterday, and it's actually been approved. So a QA officer, a project manager, a subject matter expert has actually come through and approved that one. They've checked the completed record of work, which was generated as soon as the job was completed, approved it, and theoretically that could go straight through to a customer. For the rest of our work, though, we're yet to actually start working on those vehicles. And so this information then becomes that live stream of information showing you exactly where we are up to in the project. In a second, I am going to go to our mobile app, so I'll be able to show you what a work instruction looks like to an end user. And we'll come back to here to have a look at what happens when a work instruction actually moves to being in progress. But let's have a look at our first work instruction here, which is flagged. I'm going to click View Report. As I mentioned, this gets generated as soon as the job is complete. We've got our flagged item at the top here, so we can see very clearly that our silent zone is not working correctly. The test fails. We're not quite sure what's going on. We need further investigation. As I scroll on through, I'm seeing the evidence of the work completed. So I can actually check, for example, the machine condition prior to commencing work. And I've got examples of what that machine might look like. This is all fake data, everyone, but some photos that I took of a hire car a couple of weeks ago when I was in Gladstone visiting a customer. But we've got serial numbers. We're taking photos of how we actually did the installation of the generator cables, so we can check that against our expected installation and commissioning job. We're perhaps providing comments and feedback. And if we move down into our where was our complication here? So that was on our silent zone system. I'm just scrolling through really quickly. We're actually going to come here and create a follow-up action and task. So this is how we're going to document what those steps are that we actually need to capture. We're going to assign it to the subject matter expert, or the person who actually needs to follow up and investigate that work. And we're also going to give it a due date and assign a priority. This means that we're keeping track of everything that needs to be done, so nothing gets left behind until the end of the project, and we're cleaning up all of those outstanding commissioning tasks. We're capturing all of that information as we go and actioning it, and everything is getting captured, subscribed, notified to the people that matter most. Now, let's say this is a legitimate concern. We want to communicate to this customer before rectifying. Because everything is generated in real time, we can actually come through with a click of a button and export a fully formatted, beautifully professionally designed and transparent report that we're giving our customer, with our flagged item at the top here, calling out perhaps what needs to be done as part of that process, and then all of the information actually captured throughout that process. Now, of course, what we're looking at here is a basic configuration. We work with our customers to understand what you want that output to be, but we do have a customer who completed a recent installation and commissioning project in PNG, and they actually managed to save just 70 hours alone on reducing the manual time it took for someone to take all of the photos, the information, the notes, into, from SharePoint, from scraps of paper, into fully formatted reports. So 70 hours on a single project, simply because they were able to auto format and generate those reports. And the other thing is that they give this to their customer as soon as the machine is finished being installed. So you can imagine the turnaround time. Great, this machine got finished at 10:42:24 last night. Great, we're able to give that report to our customer, in real time or immediately the next day. And so everything starts to come together in a way that we can manage, have visibility, communication, automated notifications for managers, automated notification for task holders and action holders, and a really nice, simple place that this is then connected into. Of course, and this is for another webinar, another time, the asset storing information that we have in the system also allows us to start to create that digital thread. So we're not just talking about that first installation and commissioning, we're talking about every maintenance or troubleshooting activity that happens beyond that initial, installation and commissioning. You're able to start tracking that in the system, which is going to give you, so much benefit from, turnaround times on issues, making sure your customers' products are working as they need. What I'm going to do now, though, is I am going to start the broadcast on this device. And let me just make sure that I am in the right screen. And Liam, just confirming you can see my mobile phone now.
Yep, got it. Love a good live tech demo.
Look, I was panicking for about 3 minutes at the beginning of this call because I couldn't quite figure it out, but I got there in the end. So we're good to go. And I'm actually going to open up that exact same collision avoidance work order that we were looking at in the web platform. So now I am a technician. I am doing this work out on site at Olympic Dam. I've got here my work order with all of the tasks that need to be done. What I can see is that we've got 2 machines that have been successfully installed so far as part of this, although the first one does have that little flagged issue that we identified with some follow-up tasks and activities that may be completed at a later date. And now I'm moving on to my very next machine that I'm actually going to start my installation and commissioning process. I'm going to click start on that work instruction. And now I come straight into the work instruction that I'm going to use to execute that work. And again, this can be configured based on the information you have accessible, what's important to communicate to your frontline users, what information you want to capture back from them. So this is just a very basic example of what we can do. Maybe we're going to come through and start actually entering in our installation, our serial numbers. Anything that you notice a little red icon against, that's a mandatory field. So if I actually try to finish this work instruction, it's not going to let me. So it's really important to capture the information that is going to make sense. At any point, I'm seeing evidence of what good looks like. What should cable routing look like? What type of cable ties should we use? What type of cables should we use? You can imagine being able to give examples of what good looks like, of what bad looks like, having a 30-second video showing someone how to, lift up a component to access something that's hard to reach. That information is so invaluable when we're giving jobs for people to do out in the field. And we need to, as Liam keeps mentioning, ensure that it's done correctly the first time. So I'm going to start to, capture some of my photos. I'm just going to take a photo of my keyboard in front of you to show that we're connecting into those devices, making it really easy for people to come through and capture that information. If I continue down, this is what we call a decision pathway. So actually asking the end user for information back as part of that process. So is the vehicle ready for initial range testing and commissioning? If the answer is no, I'm taking down a path with troubleshooting tips, the opportunity to capture failure information so I can give feedback to the design team or the engineering team around how that product installation is actually operating in the field. Versus if I switch that to yes, then great, I've got those selection points that I'm actually now coming through and choosing. And if I've got no answers. Maybe I'm capturing extra information about what's working and what's not working. The really great thing about this is that all of this is live as well. So you can see here that we've now moved into in progress on our third machine. If I was sitting back in Brisbane, this would come up in my dashboard. I'd be able to review the progress that I've made to date. I'd be able to communicate through actions and alerts with the technician working on site. And so it's that two-way communication, again, reducing the communication gaps between people who are doing the work and people who are managing the work. So that, again, we're not waiting until the end of the job to try and rectify all of the issues that, were lost, fell on deaf ears, couldn't be solved at the time. We've got the information and the opportunity to come through and progressively solve them as we go, so that we get to the end on time, on schedule, and hopefully the customer having that really wonderful experience of you, even when things go wrong, because we can't solve for everything all of the time, but the responsiveness of you to solve those problems, to show transparently about how you're working together is just incredibly powerful. So Liam, I'll pause there.
Cool. Thank you, Rory. And look, appreciate the brief overview there, but to understand, I guess, an impact of what, not just a digital tool, because there's lots out there, but one that I think's been built pretty fit for purpose for this space, which again we know has been pretty underserved from not just the poll we did on this call, but also from all the research from our partners as well. Well, look, I thought what we might do now, just to finish up and throw to Q&A in just a second, is, look, we spoke a little bit about that installation and commissioning, and we kind of touched briefly on those major challenges and the downstream impacts, but also what the root causes of some of those challenges are, and how we think certainly the top 3 or 4 can be solved with the right type of process and process tooling for the people that we rely on to do that work. A little bit of their time, and thank you very much for your interest. We'll share the recording around after this as well, and as well as, look, standing offer. We want this to be a dialogue. We really are passionate about this space and enabling every installation and commissioning project to be successful. So yes, thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you at the next Work Better webinar, or for those that are still in conference season, we'll probably see you at a conference in the next couple of weeks. I know Rory and I are gearing up for WA Mining Expo and IMARC and a number of others. So look, reach out, don't be strangers. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.